But these ones are more important than everything else we measure.
Really? These
over
3 things?
100 different habits. These are the ones that move the needle. So if you want to move the needle in your personal life, the personal habits, and these are the ones that move the needle the most. Number 1, high performers, you like this one. High performers seek clarity more often than their peers. And what that means for them is every situation they go into, they're seeking clarity and setting intention. And it's not like once in a while, they're doing it way more often. It's like, I've been blessed to work with Oprah Winfrey. When she has a meeting, at the start of every meeting, she asks, what's our intention here? What's the intention of this meeting? Not what's the agenda, what do I do? What's the intention? That's every meeting. So she's seeking clarity at the beginning of every meeting. That's why she's so amazing, right? If you think about her whole career, she was always trying to have people seek clarity on who they were so they could be themselves. That's what high performers are doing. They just do it more often. They seek clarity before they shoot that video, before they have the podcast interview. But specifically, we found 3 practices help you get better at seeking clarity. Number 1, they are seeking clarity in what we call the future 4. So you've probably heard that successful people are more future-minded. It's true. And specifically what they're looking at, if you talk to a high performer, they're more clear about who do I want to be in this upcoming situation. And by the way, it's not about who I am. It's about who do I want to be. They're more future-oriented. They're more intentional about who they want to be in social situations. So it's like, I want to have this type of interaction with Louis today. That's intentional. They're more clear about what skills they need to develop to reach their next level of success.
Right.
Here's how you really know an underperformer. Open up their calendar and look for any evidence that they have planned their own curriculum for greatness. If they don't have classes or courses, if they're not actively skill building, there's no chance of high performance. I mean, maybe they can dumb luck into it for initial success, but high performance is long-term success. You got to be building your skill sets.
Constantly growing, constantly learning, constantly growing.
Being aware of that. And the last of the future 4 is, I know the service I want to provide in the future. Talk to any high performers I'm sure you've interviewed. They kind of know the service and the difference they want to make. Maybe not precisely, but they're asking the question. So that's some of what we know. They seek clarity. And that's kind of the first practice, is asking questions in those areas. And the other 2 real fast is when you're seeking clarity, they're more clear about the feeling they want to have. Like an Olympic sprinter who's won gold is more likely to have said before he went or she went on the track, how do I want to feel out there? Not like just the result, like when the foot's in the block and I'm arms down, like what do I want to feel? Like they're very aware of the feeling they're trying to get.
Yeah, I don't want to feel nervous and stressed. I want to feel calm and clear and smooth. And
and they're doing that self-talk, which is seeking clarity. And then the last one, which is really important, they're clear about what's meaningful to them now and what might be different in the future, which is something I didn't know until we did a lot of the interviews or the conversations. Is a lot of people kind of know what I like now. They know what their passion is, but it's like, what's going to be meaningful to you later, like in 5 years? They've thought about that. I would say they've done the work. So that's just the first habit. And so the book kind of opens with that story of like finding we all have to decide who we are and what we want and how to get it at this stage of our life. And when we don't know that, reaching high performance can be really hard.
Yeah. It's all about clear vision for me. It's the first chapter in my book is the greatest leaders in the world have a clear vision.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's it. And they got that vision by seeking clarity.
Yes.
That was the habit that gave them the vision. They were consistently seeking, like, they asked themselves more questions. That's one of our findings. They literally are doing more of the self-talk, asking more of the questions, which is so important.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I love how you talked about this. You say the world cares less about your strengths and personality than about your service and meaningful contributions. Then why do so many of us focus on our strengths and personality?
Yeah.
Think?
That was a huge finding. That's another one. I would have completely freaked out on anybody.
Strength Finders, all these other books out there. It's like we focus on our strengths.
And unfortunately, that's in the history of personal development, that is the greatest false dichotomy that there's ever been. Focus on your strengths, it's like you have to do both. You have to do both. But what we found in our research, which surprised me, high performers do not report working on their strengths any more than regular people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not what gives them the edge. One of the chapters opens up with this guy who wrote this email, really highly successful guy. And he wrote this email to me, says, and I'd put him through all this. I put him through StrengthsFinder, the Berkman, the Colby, the Myers-Briggs, put him through everything. This is one of my first coaching clients ever. I knew everything about him. We knew all his background. We did all the homework. Had his peer review, his 360 assessments from work. And then I watched him fail for 2 years. And he wrote me this email and he said, Brendon, stop telling me like what successful people are like, because we know my strengths, I'm not getting ahead. And start telling me what they do. And that's what this book became about. It's like, what do you need to do? Because, and in this email he wrote this, which is where that finding came from. He said, this was so good. Listen to this line. He said, as a leader, I have to be honest with myself that my mission and vision should never be made to bow down to my limited human strengths. I should have to rise up to my mission or vision. The strengths aren't the relevant thing. The question is, what is necessary for me to develop into to reach that mission? It's like, your strengths are great. And it's like, yes, of course do your strengths. But that's kind of like, what I tell people is like, let's imagine you have a bear. And that bear wants to go on top of this cliff over here. And it's never been on the cliff. And it wants to get that new honey up there, right? Telling the bear to focus on its strengths, to go somewhere it's never gone before and do something it's never done before is stupid. It's like saying, hey, you know what? Just try being more of a bear.
Right.
If you say, Brendon, I got this big new vision. I just say, just try being more of Lewis. I mean, it's a spiritual level that feels good, but you and I both know you're going to have to develop far beyond your comfort zones. And strengths are typically comfort zones.
Yeah.
We got to overcome that and go to the next level.
And develop new skills and overcome certain fears and all these other things that are going to help us get to the next level. Is that right? Or?
Yeah. The whole conversation of beyond the comfort zone really requires us to go beyond our strengths. It really requires us.
That is our comfort zone.
That is our comfort zone.
What we already know, what we're good at.
And the problem with all the StrengthsFinder and all of the strengths-based movement is the assumption, and they're all written academically this way, based on what are called innate strengths. An innate strength is the assumption that you had that from birth, and that those innate strengths are what you focus on. And I'm like, well, if you had it at birth, you probably had it when you were 15 years old too. So if it's innate, you had it at 15. Are the strengths you had at 15 sufficient to serve you at 50? Hell no. You need to develop beyond what's innate and go to a whole other level. And so I take on strengths in the book in that way, but I also say it almost doesn't matter, because a lot of people have strengths and they suck at work because they're not doing these habits. I mean, how many people do you know I know who are amazingly strong and their StrengthsFinders are amazing and they don't do anything all day?
That's it. Yeah. A lot of people. I mean, in the sports world, there's a lot of great, talented people who had the greatest gifts, but they still weren't able to win.
Yeah.
Or they were lazy, or they wouldn't, hustle or sacrifice their body because they just relied on their talents, their strengths.
Yep.
And so they were never able to get to the championship game or get on the best teams because
and
they had all the talent in the world. And you're just like, if I was as gifted as this person, I would be incredible. You know?
I mean, that's the whole thing about the talent code or a lot of newer research in performance. It just says what's more important is what you do with what you got to develop into the vision of the mission you need to serve. And so the book kind of lays out a lot of the science behind that, and then goes into, obviously most of it's oriented towards the 6 habits.
So in terms of clarity, what is that habit that you take on a daily or monthly basis with clarity? What do you think about? You're like, every morning, what am I clear about? Or, how do you apply that habit to your life?
I apply it in a couple ways. First, for me, every situation I go into, I'm consistently asking, like, what's the feeling I want to have here? If you ever see me teach, it's often, I would say, bring the joy. So I have joy triggers that I've set up in my mind that makes me more intentional about things. So, for example, I have a door frame trigger. Whenever I walk through a door, I say, bring the joy. So when I walk through that door right there, it's like, bring the joy into this room. It's just a mental trigger that I've set up for myself. Every morning in the shower, I ask myself 3 questions. And not that I shower every morning, but the ones I do. The first question I say, what can I be excited about today? So it forces me to be clear about what's going to draw joy, enthusiasm from me. Number 2, I say, what might trip me up today? Because usually I know what's going on in the day. I'm like, what might mess me up? Where might I not perform well? What might bother me? And number 3, I say, what can I do to surprise somebody today? To give a gift of appreciation or acknowledgement today. And so I think through that in the morning. So I think that helps me begin my day pretty clear. Then when I sit down before I do work, I literally look at my calendar of the day. I did this morning. And I look at whatever's going on in the day and I think about it for 20 minutes. It's one of my 20-minute routines in the morning. I literally think about my calendar for 20 minutes a day. And people think that's crazy. But what I'm thinking through when I'm looking at the calendar, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have that call. What do I want to happen on that call? What's my intention for that call? What's my goal for that call? What's the feeling for that call? How do I want to end that call? I'm going to have that time with Lewis. Like, how do I want to be there? And how can I make sure I enjoy it? Because it's a big deal. I love your show. I want to do a good job. I want to share something good for the people, even though I have no idea what you're going to ask.
Right.
In this, I want to be present for that and make sure I'm really there, even though maybe I have a head cold today. It's like it's like just thinking through it. I think that helps me. It keeps me asking questions. Every Sunday, I do a life arenas assessment. That just means I think there's 10 areas of our life, and I score myself in them. And this is about my 11th year of doing this.
Wow.
So each area of my life, from emotional quality to happiness to relationships to time to hobby, etc. I just give myself a score of 1 to 10. And 1 means I suck, and I was horrible in the previous week on that. 10 means I did a good job. And then I ask, how can I do better? It's my Sunday routine. Yeah. And it just keeps me clear. And it's not like I don't sometimes, like everyone else, wonder what's going on or what I'm doing. But those habits, those were my habits. You have to establish your own for seeking clarity. Right. But when you have them, you weaponize your life.
Absolutely, yeah. Clarity, powerful thing. Without clarity, it's hard to achieve a dream.
Yeah.
It's hard to get better. It's hard to grow and be a high performer.
Yeah, no clarity, no change.
That's it.
No goals, no growth.
That's it. The second one that I see here is energy.
Yeah.
What do you mean by energy?
So in the way we
peak energy, high energy all day long.
Yeah, no, it's not caffeinated energy, but it's the habit is generate energy.
Okay.
Not necessarily have energy.
Create energy.
Create energy. And what they do, the way we measure that was kind of academic. Mental energy, which is tied to your focus and your stamina and your ability to manage complex tasks without too much mental stress. Number 2 is emotional energy, which is just the quality of your positive emotions. And number 3 is physical energy. High performers are 40% more likely to work out 5 times per week than the rest of their peers. So that means the top 15% most high-performing people in the world tend to work out 5 days per week. And that workout could be defined as, 45-minute brisk walk or, HIIT intensity or whatever it is. But 40% more likely. That's a huge finding. And what we found is high performers just have better well-being and happiness and physical conditioning than everybody else. One stunning finding was CEOs, senior executives, and business owners, they report expending as much energy as athletes who are competitive now.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised by that. I would have thought, athletes would be 10% more.
I mean, the emotional and mental energy they have, the decision-making, the conversations, the big deals, the stakeness.
Yeah.
It's a lot of energy.
It's a lot. And that's why, if you really want to achieve your dreams, you have to care for your body, your mind. That's why all these things, finally resonating in the marketplace because of the science of meditation or taking a break or, managing your own energy. Sleep is everything. Yeah. And I think all of that is really important. And we say generate energy because there's this myth that, some people have happiness or they have, it's like, no, you generate it. You don't have happiness. You generate it.
Create it, yeah.
You create it. And so the quality of your energy you have to create. Like you and I both, if most of our audience knew our schedules, your schedule the last 5 days, is like, how is Lewis even able to focus right now?
And how are you able to get here and do this as well?
Yeah, but it's because we say, well, this is our mission. Show up, man.
Yeah,
there's plenty of times I got to imagine you walked on the field and you were like, I'm spent.
Exhausted.
You know, I remember when you like flew down to compete in South
still
America.
I still play with the USA team handball team. And a year ago, I flew down to. I remember I did an interview in Miami, and then flew out from Miami, and then went right into training camp, and then played against Brazil, which is like Olympic qualifiers, and got our asses whooped. But it was fun, But I had to have clarity and energy and show up, even when I was like, oh, we're gonna lose.
Yeah,
like there's zero chance.
Yeah,
it was like the worst team in the NBA playing like the Warriors, and we were just like we had no chance.
Yeah.
But I had to show up and give my best. And
you have to set all these routines. The amount of routines that Tom Brady has in his life so that he can generate energy.
It's unbelievable.
Stuns most people.
It's unbelievable.
And that's
what it takes if you want to be at that level. If you don't want to be at that level, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. I mean, everybody can just like, well, I'm going to go, hit the Cinnabon, but it's like, it's
pretty
like,
good.
How do you want to feel at 3:00?
Yes.
If you want to feel amazing at 3:00, don't end lunch with a Cinnabon.
It's
like
crazy.
You have to
Gosh, it's crazy. Like I'm 34 now, and I could eat like sugar and bad food for all my 20s, right?
Yeah.
And now when I go off of sugar for like a month and then I just binge for a day, it's like I literally can't walk the next day. My back is like so
it's
stiff.
A sugar
I'm like,
hangover.
oh my gosh, like my whole body is exhausted.
Inflammation.
So much inflammation.
Yes.
Once I cut it out and then I bring it back, I'm like, I feel so old.
Yeah. Well,
and
dude, I'm the same way at my seminars. Like we do 4-day event and it's just me. Whew. I usually have 1 or 2 big names come in, but it's me 12 hours a day, 4 days, teaching, and I never sit down.
High energy.
I never sit down on stage. And super high energy. I mean, really going for it. Not just the clapping and the jumping, but really just spending heart. You know how hard it is.
Of course.
And I had to, about the same time, when I was 35, I had a famous strength and conditioning coach backstage. He works with me and Usher. And he's like, what do you eat back here? And, another guy came in and strapped the heart rate monitor machine. He goes, I'm equivalently working out at the marathon level every day for 4 days. They're like, you're not eating. I was losing on average 11 pounds in my seminars. And I do 8 events a year. So I was losing 88 pounds a year. It was like, it's horrible for your health. So I had to learn how to eat. I had to learn I do ice baths every night at my events, which
smart.
No one loves to do that.
Here's the thing. I used to do it every day in football, like during the season.
Yeah.
And it sucks for the first month, but then you start to love it.
Yes. I have to do it.
You know what I mean? It's like you just start to, it feels so good. So.
Feels so good. After stage, it's
the
like
best.
12 hours. So no one says I want a habit of taking an ice bath at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But if I want to be high performing on stage, that's the choice.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people listening, consult your doctor.
Of course. Yeah.
And
only do it for 10 minutes. Don't stay in for a half hour. Yeah.
Right. So, but all those things you have to. So, what are your habits for energy? And the funny thing is, you sit down with high performers, they know them. They can tell you, I do this, and you're like, man, you're on your game.
You got it down. Yeah. And they're always probably looking to improve it.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. They're always, but they're very aware of it. And they, what I found was they get pissy if they're off it.
Yeah, of course. I didn't meditate this morning, and I was like, I was kind of frustrated a little bit. Someone asked me when we were at our meeting today at the Soho House, he was like, how was your meditation? Because he knows I like to meditate. And I was like, I missed this morning. I did yesterday, but I missed this morning. It's agitating when I miss one of my habits.
Yes.
It's like, I need to get up earlier. And yeah.
That is exactly what you just said. It really agitates high performers when they're off their energetic habits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The third big personal habit, which, by the way, I've been teaching high performance for a decade. We have the #1 seminar on that and the #1 online course. And I was wrong. I never knew this was the thing. And you're going to laugh because you're like, duh, dude, I could have sat you down. But I just didn't know. I taught it as like subtext, but I didn't know it was the thing. And that is high performers raise necessity. And what that means is they raise the necessity of performance in their mind before each performance. They say, I got to do great. And they give themselves reasons why. So they're connected to their why. But it's different than just giving, like, know your why is nice. Know your why and give yourself edge for it.
What do you mean?
Let me give you an example. 2 guys walking out on the track field. Mm-hmm. Who's going to win? Well, equal quality of experience, similar times, maybe they've raced before. The guy at the blocks who I'm going to bet on is the guy who came out and said, got to do this for my mom. They have a reason to perform at heightened levels. Mm. And they have connected to that over and over. Now, again, some of this, Brendon, But the finding, the research is they just do that more often than underperformers or even, good performers.
Yeah.
They're more connected to their reasons why, and they're stirring it, man. It's like, and they do it from two angles. One angle is your internal standards. Like my values or my self-expectations say, I got to crush this because that's who I frickin' am.
Yeah.
Like when you walk out, you're like, you're not going to, screw around on when you're playing handball. You're like, this is who I'm Lewis. I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick some ass here.
Yeah.
It's that self expectation. Okay. Then though, they pair it with external obligation. Like my team needs me to do this. The deadline says this time. There's some kind of external, they don't call it pressure.
My family, something bigger than themselves.
Something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was another thing I was surprised by. They don't say, they rarely use the word pressure because they want it. Like people who use pressure, they don't want it. But high performers, I found they're connected. I'm doing this for a bigger cause, a bigger reason, a team. Or there's sometimes just like deadline. Like I'm an unbelievably high performing writer when there's a deadline.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a weapon, right? Before that, I'm not always on my game.
Sure.
So, but if you have those reasons, so you got to have your internal reasons and your external reasons, and then your job is remind yourself of that more often. That's what's called raising necessity. And we were the first ones to kind of prove that with the data. And I was pretty stunned at that. Remember, these three aren't like my opinion. You might say, yeah, these are whatever. I'm like, but these ones are more important than everything else we measure.
Really? These
over 100 different habits. These are the ones that move the needle. So if you want to move the needle in your personal life, number 1, seek clarity more often. Number 2, generate energy with more consistency and will. And number 3, raise necessity. Raise the stakes before you go into any performance situation.
If you want to learn more about how to master your mind, check out this next video right here.
We're all faced with great opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations, and we are at that point, at that nexus point in our evolution as a species. So then you don't try to fix that. That's never going to work. What you do